and welcome to episode number 3 of Our Heritage, Our Views. My name is Kenneth Comer, your host for today, and I got more guests with us today. Last episode we had 3. Today, I think we got 6 of us today, 6 guests today. So we're gonna go ahead and have you introduce yourself one by one, and we'll start off with our lady. So who wants to start off first with the introduction?
I'll go. So, hi, my name is Amberlee Carter. I am the Assistant Director of Intercultural Student Engagement at the University of Albany. And all that means is that I run the Multicultural Resource Center and the Interfaith Center, among many other tasks that I get asked to do. I'm also a cousin of Emmett Till.
Mm, mm. Okay, who
Oh,
wants to follow up?
I can go next. My name is Denise Evans. I'm a postgrad. I'm currently working an associate policy analyst at the University of Chicago, where I primarily do policy-related work to child welfare and youth homelessness.
Okay, okay.
I'll go next. My name is Kristen Dow. I'm a student at Kenwood Academy High School, and yeah.
hello guys. My name is Joseph Olulusi. I'm from Chicago and I work in public accounting right now for RSM US LLP.
Great. Hi, everybody. My name is Julius Olulusi. I work for the Department of Homeland Security as a consultant slash contractor. I work primarily as a technical writer.
Okay. Thank you all for your introductions. Thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself. And it's very important that we were able to kind of what people are doing. That you see that we're all kind of in the same age bracket, all around the same age group. And we want to kind of have an interesting discussion about our heritage, but from a different perspective, from our millennial perspective. So the first question that we want to start off with asking, we want to do a little bit of Black appreciation in this time in Black History Month. And we want to kind of talk about what's so beneficial about our culture. So we're going to go around and kind of talk about specific things. I'll start us first. What is very beneficial about our heritage? And for me, I always pick our resiliency. We're a very, very, very resilient group of people. We can make a joke out of anything, which everybody doesn't like, but it's a way, kind of a coping mechanism for us to overcome things. And I think that's a very important part. There are plenty of different races, plenty of different groups of people that have faced hardships, but we can all honestly say that the African-American hardship is a very different one. We're not saying that anything is worse, but we can say that it's a very different thing to overcome. And I've always appreciated how well we overcome our difficult moments. So that's what I think is very beneficial about us as about a people. And who wants to go next and share a little bit?
I can go. So the first thing that came to my mind, like what's beneficial about our culture, I think we're such an innovative people. We're trailblazers. I love how, despite obstacles that have gotten in our way, we've always found ways to transcend those barriers, and we're trailblazers in a sense that like we set the trends and everybody else follows. So those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, I definitely agree. And I think the biggest thing that I can think of that really defines our generation in relation to our ancestors is really like how social media has played such a big effect now, and how we express ourselves, the way that we can even create a movement, And I think that is something that's very unique to this generation. Before we had Malcolm X's and MLK's, but now we see like a much larger front because of just this much larger network that people are able to access through it, and also really be able to support each other as well in all types of ways. So
Absolutely. I'll piggyback off of that and say that, I love our ability to create community. You think of tribes and coming together and unifying and finding common thread, and even being able to relate to many different types of people through intersectionality, having different identities, and connecting and building community amongst those different identities. I love that about it.
Yeah, I would agree with what everybody said. I think that ultimately, I think our culture is to passionately look forward to the future and collaboration, because our history, it has a very sketchy past, and a lot of our culture is wrapped up in a lot of different, sad stories. But it forces us to kind of look forward and just look for justice going forward and collaboration going forward, because we just have so many different things that um, are just lost in our culture also. So it's just interesting. We force ourselves to look forward in collaboration.
Miss Kristen, do you have a point to make as well?
Um, yes, I really like in our culture, the ability to gain knowledge and being able to perceive that knowledge in like different ways when you think about like just like back in even slavery when slaves were trying to learn how to read and write. It's very interesting, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well. I think, Julius, you made a good point that I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper into. You spoke about how there's such a large front of different support systems and people who we kind of look to as far as inspiration. Uh, can I have everybody kind of dive into that a little bit more? I have a question about, do you all think that that's a good thing or a bad thing? We have so many other generations that they had like a couple of focal points that everybody looked to kind of get behind. But with us, the fight can kind of happen in so many different places. Let's just dive into that a little bit more. What are you all's perspective on that?
Yeah. I think I think that when we think about I personally think that it is better just because I think that before you kind of had a leader, but now, I'm thinking back to around the time where there was like a lot of police riots and all of the in pretty much the police department in the United States around then, a lot of people were exposing the things that police were doing in a lot of different places, while a lot of people were able to really communicate and advocate for each other at a level that a leader can't. I think a lot of minds are greater than one. And I think because of that, I think that it might be a little bit better. Plus, a leader can get taken down. And I think we've all seen that before. And it's a little bit different and harder to change. Yeah. Also, one more interesting thing. There was I don't know if you guys know about the thing that happened on Reddit, where a bunch of different people in the stock market like pretty much caused GameStop to go up a bunch, and a bunch of hedge funds like missed out on a lot of money. And that's another example of people really teaming up together through like these new resources that I think makes the movement really unique.
I think for me, I want to create an inclusive world for all, right? Like, what does life look like, and what is the dream that we've always pictured that MLK talked about? I can think of a time when they killed Fred Hampton, and he said, we killed the head is dead, right? That was the slogan they had. And it's the idea that if we kill the one leader, then the rest of the movement will die. And that simply isn't true, because we all carry this movement inside of us and we fight for our own passions. And so it's okay to fight for many different passions. There's a lot going on in this world, and we need everybody to get on board to create the world that we really wish we could live in, right? So I think for me, that's what I love about us, is that we can look at something and say, okay, there's many different avenues and ways to get free. Let's try them all.
Great point. Great point.
I agree with that, Amberlee. And I don't have too much to add to that. I was just thinking that it allows everyone to get in where they fit in. So you don't necessarily need to be on the front lines protesting if that's not your thing, because with the movement like being so diverse, you can get in where you fit in. Like if you're a storyteller, now there are avenues and ways that you can use storytelling to like be an activist. If art is your thing, if academia is your thing, there are just so many ways in which we can reach large masses of people without it being intimidating, as it has to be all or nothing in one particular space. So
And that story is what makes us unique, right? The fact
Yeah.
that I am Black, I'm a woman, I am a Christian. Those are many different angles of opportunity for me to be oppressed, but also for me to thrive and to grow and to have community and family, right? So being able to share all of the stories from my different lens, my Christian lens, my Black feminist woman lens, right? I can share all of that, and that makes our stories unique.
Yeah, I think also to add on to that, it really also makes sure that all of our leaders, kind of look like us in the same type of way too. You can have somebody who's a man, somebody who's a woman, somebody who might be transgender, all being a leader in the community and look up to them and things that they're doing, rather than it being an issue where you look into this, look on TV or around, and everybody that you see fighting isn't for you, and you don't feel like your ideas are considered.
Yeah, those are great points, and something that I kind of looking at is the kind of a central point, and all those points are those are things that we all can do because we are free thinking adults at this point, and we have the right to vote, and we have the right to go into those different protests and be a part of that. Christian, on the other hand, somebody who is a bit younger than us, isn't afforded those same opportunities to affect the world that affects her so much. So I guess, Kristen, I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts, or how do you feel in those situations of the riots and different things going on with us as a people, and how do you try to help in the best way that you can?
Um, Thank you. So I know that a lot of my friends and peers were like really angry about everything that was going on. Like it didn't matter like where they came from, they all wanted to do something. So we mainly use social media and talk to other people about it, and using people's platforms to raise awareness. So I guess that was our like riot or argument, and I know there are some people who are my age going to riots, um or protests, sorry. So yeah, that was like our thing. When I think of change as someone who's a seventh grader, I think of like how I see stuff in our community, and then how I see stuff like just happening in the world. And sometimes, it's sad that I can't do impactful change, or I see that I can't, but there's always like some area where I can learn from and I can influence. Again, bringing up social media, kids and teens are using that to create a platform and to use that platform to speak about the Black experience. And I think that we have been so stagnant for so long, and I think that we need to start really starting to change quickly, and to make sure that the people after us do have better opportunities and a better way of living as a Black student.
So then I want to transition, and as we talked about that there's so many different fights, I do want to kind of use a moment, and we can start off with Kristen and then transition to Joseph. I know we haven't heard his voice in a little bit. Just kind of speaking about maybe one or two people, well, really just one person that we kind of look up to. And it doesn't have to be a specific historical civil rights figure. It could be somebody who inspires us today. Just is there one person that helps motivate you, and why? What do they do to help push you forward?
Me?
Yeah, we can go ahead and start off with Kristen or Joseph.
Yeah, I'll go. I haven't said anything in a while, and Yeah, one person that really motivates me, and that's so funny because we just talked about how, you know, you got like the cutting the snake off the, I mean, cutting the head off the snake, and you can end the movement. But it's so many different Black people that are doing things nowadays. It's hard for me to really pick one. Um, you know, because I'm thinking Melissa Conyers is the treasurer of the city of Chicago, which really inspires me, you know, as an accountant. And that's like one person I wanted to bring up. But then I also think about, you know, Don Lemon. I feel like Don Lemon is so cool, just because, just from his platform and being able to talk about the election, the history of the election that just happened, and talking of bringing people like Stacey Abrams and people, you know, Kamala Harris, and just bringing, you know, great news to the forefront of CNN as a Black male, and it's just really cool. I feel like it's very difficult for me to really pinpoint a Black person, one person that's really giving me energy. But yeah, though Stacey, okay, Don Lemon and Melissa Conyers are my people that I'll pick right now.
I totally agree with that in the sense that there's so many people, especially nowadays, when you like turn on the TV, you see people like Stacey Abrams and Kamala Harris and AOC making like all these drastic changes in our society. So I would really focus on them because Mom, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. And like seeing how they've influenced like a lot of the Black community and our society in general, and like seeing myself in these people is like really cool too.
I do have a point. Can I say one thing? Because it's weird, because I think it's easier for me to talk about people that have passed on, that I idolize more than I do now, like people that are in the space now. Because I could easily say that I really love Martin Luther King, and I think, but it's interesting because I guess because you can only watch videos of these people at their pivotal moments, that it's so much easier to idolize them as, you know, your Black History Month, what is it called? Animal, spiritual animal, right? But but it's so much more difficult nowadays, because you have such an option to see people for who they really are now on social media, around in every space and avenue, and there's so many different types of people nowadays that it's just harder to really pick. And it's really hard, and I think that it's important that we have to realize that history is happening right now, and the people that we are seeing right now are real history, and to give them, you know, the respect they deserve. So
that's a crazy point that you made, Joseph. But before we segue, before we go to the next section, the point that you made about history is currently happening. I think that's something as younger people, we kind of lose sight of that. And I really didn't think about it until I'm a crazy Issa Rae fan. Like I'm my background is in telecommunications. I do short films, things of that nature, but my job is in social media marketing. But I'm crazy about Issa Rae, but it's because of I think it was Janice who said that point, or somebody made a point about how we're just a people of trailblazing. She went from a small YouTube show, small YouTube web series to a major show on HBO. You know, that's something that you don't think about it as something major, because it's like it's entertainment and it's just a show. But when you really think about it, it's like it's not many people who do what she does, and she's such a multifaceted person. And you have to really look at her and go, wow, this is history really unfolding. Kind of similar to when people were listening to older artists before. But I think it is something that we do have to do more of, taking a step back and just appreciating the history that is literally blossoming in front of us.
think there are a lot of people out there doing the work. I think our problem is visibility a lot of times in our access, right? Access to based off of privilege, right? So if I have more money, I have more dollars to create marketing, right? I have more networking. I have more people in my network that I could reach out to, say, hey, I know you work for Viacom. Can you put me on, right? Versus folks who are like, yeah, I do really great iPhone videos, but the only people who are seeing them are my friends from school and my teachers, right? And so some folks just need access, right? And I want to go back to Joseph because he named like 3 people that I really don't like. But I can appreciate that that's who you believe are your heroes, and I think that you bring up a really great point. The reason I don't like some of those people you mentioned are because I can go back and check their track record right now in real time and say, I don't like the decision you made, or I don't like the comments you made. It was very hurtful for our people, or I felt like I was personally hurt when you made that statement, or I know a family that was hurt when you didn't handle the case right. You're a prosecutor for Oscar Grant, the situation with Oscar Grant, and you let those police officers off. So I'm having a hard time with you as my vice president, right? And not holding it against her in a way that's like, Kamala, you can't be my vice president, but I really think you messed up. And I really want to know why you made the decisions that you made around the cases that you had during that time span, right? And I'm giving you another shot, right? Against what it may not feel good right now, but I'm hoping you'll make me feel good later. So you may not be my hero today, but maybe you're my hero tomorrow.
That's deep. That's deep.
We're also the lesser of 2 evils,
I don't want to hear nothing about lesser of 2 evils.
Because like I think that
I want a free world.
I agree, Amberlee. I'm done with the lesser of 2 evils conversation.
That's such a great point.
There.
It's such a great point because I'm just thinking about Mayor Lori Lightfoot right now. Mayor Lori Lightfoot, I want her to be my auntie so bad.
No.
But after we hear so many countless things about her, and now I think that one thing that just went viral is how she's handled this recent budget as it relates to COVID-19 and
it's crazy.
the police. Yeah. And so now she's on she's in a pivotal stage, but she's going to go down in history regardless of, how we're going to put it or not. And so it's difficult nowadays because you have such it's so easy to see exactly what people are doing. People are being held to account so much more nowadays that it's just harder to put people on the pedestal. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
So and just to kind of keep us looped in a little bit, and to piggyback off of a point that you made, Joseph, as far as how keeping somebody accountable for their actions is something much more prevalent in today's culture. Do we look at our, for lack of better words, our Mount Rushmore of civil rights activists and those people that we had in such esteem? Do we think that they didn't have any flaws or any things that were wrong with them, or, and obviously later down the line and after they passed, we found out things of that nature. But how much do you think that people didn't know about those things during those times? And that didn't really affect who they were necessarily. People knew the things that they were doing, and maybe if it was public image on social media, that's a different story. But what they were trying to do as their focus was more important. And that's why I like the point that Ms. Carter made about, you may not be my hero now, but maybe you'll be my hero tomorrow. Kind of leaving that opportunity and that room for growth and improvement for people that we expect to do better for us, I guess,
That's so deep. Go ahead, please, Julius. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I honestly think that the problem isn't necessarily, us calling it people out and we write down the different things that they do right or wrong. I think that it's important for us to also, when we're criticizing the people that are making decisions that we don't agree with, we find the best way to go about that, given the fact that they can make mistakes too. I think there are ways to be critical of people, but I also think that there's a lot of ways to spread hate. And I think being hopeful for anybody is something that is very important. You know, I think it's very easy on the internet or on anything these days to, you know, really stalk people. Well, you know, when you're in a political office, you have responsibilities. That's just how that is. But I think it is important that even we as people, and not even just that, I guess this entire system just really needs a much better way to communicate about the things that are going on outside of just having one person in charge, I think, you know.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think in hindsight, it's easy to like highlight the high points, because if you actually talk to folks who lived in that era, Martin Luther King was kind of disapproved of both by white people and black people. Black people thought he was a sellout, and so it wasn't until years later that to I'm sorry, was that somebody's? It wasn't until years later that we started to memorialize him in a way that he started to be seen in this light, like that, you know, white folks started quoting him. And so I had a very similar experience with Barack Obama's presidency. Like
Mm.
I adored him like for his 2 terms, but like as I've gotten older and things are starting to come out, I'm realizing like some of his policies were so detrimental to the Black community, and it like set us back. So I think it's always easy to memorialize like our heroes well after they're gone, and I think every generation struggles with really like that accountability and seeing them from a different perspective in the moment than later down the line.
Yeah. So to transition just a little bit, we're still going to kind of stay on this topic of our historical leaders and different mistakes and prominent figures. And we're going to kind of direct this to Kristen a little bit, and then everybody else can chime in. Kristen, could you give us your thoughts, I guess, when you hear about past leaders or prominent leaders, people that we should probably look up to, and people who they say, you know, inspired to be like this person, and you hear about mistakes that they've made or wrong decisions that they've encountered. How do you feel about them, or how do you view them after hearing about those mistakes?
Um, hmm. I think that when you hear about like a lot of people's heroes and they're putting them in a bad light, the first thing you want to do is like, well, it's not true, or be like defending them as long as possible. And then when you like when you step back and you think about it, you think about like how wrong this is, and you have to think about like those people were human. They're not anything above anyone. So to put them in a way where they are seen as like God is, you shouldn't have done that in the first place. And I think that you should continue to hold people accountable no matter what people have done, good or bad.
I agree with that point too, and I also just to piggyback on this idea that not seeing people as gods or perfect, because we also like to look at the world and decide that a lot of things have been done already, and a lot of things people have done everything already, right? But I think when I see how many mistakes other people make, and even when we look at Barack Obama's book, one of his new book, his main point was just to show that he felt like he could have did better things when he was in office. And I think that when we see that people are making all of these mistakes, there's things that can be done better. It should spark a passion in ourselves today that there's still things to be done, and there's still things to be able to progress in this world. And I thought that's something that kind of gives me some energy and spirit when I get up in the morning and look towards the future as well. So
I think there needs to be a conversation around what accountability looks like, right? We say be accountable, we're going to hold them accountable. But part of what the problem is, are the systems in which we hold people accountable, right? You talk about the prison system or the prison industrial system, right? And how we go about putting people into our criminal system, right? Or how they come out of it and what we do to bring them back into our community. There's no real structure that is set up in a way that will restore our community or restore individuals and give them good mental health resources, or even just what they need for their basic survival. And I think that we have to look at those things when we talk about holding people accountable. What are we doing to provide and to assist them when in their real needs?
Very valid question.
That's a really good point. I just wanted to repeat that too.
Oh, I'm sorry, Julius. I thought you were about to. Okay, so
Oh no, that was
I
just a
do
really good point. I had to say something.
So we're going to transition to another section, and we're going to kind of talk about the evolution of our heritage, the evolution of our culture. If you look back through history, you can go through whatever specific point you want to focus on, whether it's ingenuity, whether it's sports accolades, whether it's political office. We've always found a way to become a first of first, or the first of a few, or we always find a way to bring something new to light. But we don't always know when that's going to happen. Sometimes it's a boom in music, sometimes it's a boom in art. It just kind of comes from however Mother Nature is working with us in the time being. Where do you all see the next kind of Black evolution, Black renaissance coming from? We can kind of see it a little bit, I would say, in the TV and film industry, and some forms or some facets. But where would you say the next one would come from? Or if you don't have a prediction, where personally would you want to see that next Black renaissance come from? What area would you want to see it focused in?
That's an interesting question. Oh, go ahead.
No, you already started. Go ahead.
I'd say that was an interesting question, and I don't have a fully processed thought. But the first thing that kind of came to my mind was just Black small business entrepreneurship, because I'm seeing that pop up a lot. And I'm seeing that when we're in spaces that don't allow us room at the table, we're starting to create our own tables and we're starting to create our own brands. And I think that it allows us to support each other in a more authentic way. So I'm proud of like a lot of the Black owned businesses that try to support as many as I can. And I definitely see like a boom in that area.
I'm seeing a lot in fintech, and I just really hope to see a whole lot more around tech. There's so much innovation that can happen there. And then also in media, right? When I look at Blavity and what Blavity is doing, I absolutely love what they're doing and the different businesses that they are acquiring to kind of build up as a corporation eventually. I believe is what's going to happen with Morgan. And I'm looking to see what she does next with Blavity, because the media that we have now, we know we very rarely can rely on, but I think she's got something going good with tech and media together.
I agree. I also think on the front of just finance, different Harlem Capital. I was going to talk about, as well as just there being more opportunities in venture capital as well. There's a lot of different foundations as well as industries that are really trying to get people into these communities. VC, angel investing. And that's really important because there's so many Black ideas out there. And that kind of leads us to talking about the, Black businesses that are really popping up a lot more, and how they're going to be able to access finances for the future, really having people that look like them in the room in order to be able to help them, get the different things that we need to support our community and new innovations and stuff like that. Also as well, I was really thinking about, the end of COVID. I think that will have a very big effect on art, as well as music, as well as really, the amount of money that's being spent out there on Black people, and some type of renaissance effect similar to what happened around the Spanish flu in the 1920s, and that leading into what is it called? The Roaring Twenties, or that larger economic surge. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I also want to just talk about, I think Ms. Carter talked about technology, and I think that's also important. I mean, technology is just, it's really going to be the forefront of, you know, real capital for the future. You know, everything is moving into a more technical space, and I would just hate for, you know, Black people to not be a larger part of that front. I've also, one thing that has been making me mad is the rise of, you know, marijuana, the marijuana industry, the cannabis industry, and the agricultural industry at large. And I just feel like, for all of the discrimination that Black people have faced, it would also be sad to not see them have a large forefront in that industry as well. And so I think that that's all going to have to do with finance as well. I feel like it's going to take that for Black people to be in all these different areas so that people can collaborate with one another, to be able to really maximize their ability to be in these different spaces. But yeah, I had to at least bring up those two industries.
So we're going to transition a little bit, and we're going to start off with Kristen for this next question. The church has always been kind of important in the evolution of Black people, and different times it's been a larger beacon. And in recent times, it may not be the beacon that it once was, or the beacon that we want it to be. But in what ways could the church still help and aid in the evolution of our heritage and in the evolution of us as a culture as a whole?
I think when you think about Black, or specifically Black churches in the past, you saw them as a safe place, a place to get basic needs, a place to congregate and to explore ideas and opportunities and converse about them. So I think if we continue to create a place like that, where it's not just you go to church for 1 or 2 hours and you go back home, and where you are given opportunities and you actually talk to people and talk about things that are going on, and how you can impact your community through the church.
Mm. I really like that. I like that. I know that a lot of church ministers, they have, especially in Chicago, they have a large connection with the Chicago City Council. I know even our church, Sheldon Heights Church of Christ, we work with our district city council aldermen to provide different resources in our community. And, you know, that's something that we could at least talk to the youth about, you know, these things that are in connection with the church. And it could definitely spark a passion to get involved in at a greater stage, you know, just for the youth and their long term in their career. So I think that's a great point, Mr. Al.
One thing that I would say I think the church is actually doing a really good job of is also really keeping up with the trends and being available on social media for people as well. I think there's a lot of young pastors that really can speak in the same way and provide a voice for the church, similarly to how we see for, you know, the movement as it comes to, you know, dealing with race and race relations and all of those different protests. There's also a really, really cool and inclusive movement of different people talking about the word and sparking a lot of conversation. I do think one thing that also would be good would be really finding more ways to have inclusive conversation that includes the fact that we all do sin and we all do things that, you know, are messed up, and really being able to bring that to the forefront to really put people more comfortable coming to church and being in spaces like that, and even being able to take advantage of the resources, that the church has.
I think historically the Black church has always had its role when it comes to politics and really kind of trying to uplift the community, right? We served as advocates, we've served as the leadership in the community. And I don't think anything is different now. When we think about the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of the preachers, a lot of pastors opened their doors for Black Lives Matter members to come in, or even just folks who wanted to go out and protest to come in to get water, food. They let them use their soup kitchens, and they still are doing the work. We're out here feeding homeless. We're giving vaccines, or allowing our space to be used to give the vaccine, allowing our space to be used to do the testing, right? And a lot of that wouldn't be done if the ministers and the pastors weren't in good relationship with the political arena, right? If we didn't have a seat at the table. And I think that folks who are politicians know that that's necessary to reach the Black community, right? If we are the ones who are contracting this virus at the higher rates and we're dying from it at higher rates, then we need those pastors, those ministers, even just the women in the church who are, making food or whatever they may be doing to assist. Because let's face it, a lot of women do a lot of work that we don't get praised for, right?
Yeah.
Just throwing out that little tidbit there, to do this work, to make it happen. And so even if it's just setting up the table where folks come in to sign up and be checked in, we're making sure we're creating venue and space for us to get what we need and the resources we need. And I think a lot of times that gets kind of thrown by the wayside or not even mentioned, right? It gets dismissed. But we are doing that work in our communities, because if someone else from outside of the community tried to show up and do it, would we trust them? Probably not. So I'm grateful for Sheldon Heights for being a space that has a food pantry and is feeding people, a space that goes and delivers coats and hats and items that people need for their well-being on the streets, right? And especially in difficult times like this is very hard. We're all struggling. And the fact that we can take a moment to think about other people and really letting that be what brings and draws people to us, right? Our love being on the forefront and on display, I think is what is bringing people to the church. And so we're going to continue to do that work and make sure that folks know who God is by seeing it in us.
Denise, do you have a point that you want to make on that, or?
I'm really thinking because I kind of feel the opposite in a sense. Like I'm trying to wrap my head around like my thoughts, because when I think of the church, the Black church historically, it served as basically the cornerstone of all like Black life. Like before integration, like we didn't have other spaces. The Black church was the place where we got educated, where we taught people job skills, where we gave people jobs and food and all of those things. And sometimes I feel like now the church is more reactive to a lot of these things. There are a lot of community organizations that are a lot more progressive, and sometimes I find myself feeling like the church as a whole gets lost in the sauce in terms of like, how are we standing out? How are we really reaching people? Are we still using like methods that no longer are working to like go out into the community and reach people? Yeah, I'm just having a hard time really articulating like if I feel like the church is really that cornerstone that it once was. And I don't feel like it is.
And I think that's interesting. And I think when we was talking about, Julius was talking about communicating and like finding a way to communicate, because I think that both sides of what we're talking about are true, in a sense. But I think that it's just not communicated, that relation to, we're going out here and we're gonna love people, because it's the will of God, and we're gonna show people how to be involved through the love that God has placed in us. But in the same way, we're also involved in policy because through our love for the community through God, we are also involved in this food pantry that is funded by the government. And if you want to get involved with policy, you might want to go to college to get in BSU, but you can also get involved with the church right here, and that's policy as well, and that's getting involved with the government as well. But it's just that relationship. We have to also be able to effectively communicate that this is not just, this is the love of God. This is Christianity, and Christianity plays a role in policy. Christianity plays a role in government and how you're going out and engaging your community. It's just not. I don't think it's just communicated in that way. But it is. But it's just things are everything can be better. Everything can be more effective in a sense. And so that's just what I'm thinking when I'm thinking about these things.
Oh, no problem. I think for me, and I'm not saying, because I think Sheldon Heights has like a lot of great programming, but I see the disconnect where I'm like, okay, there are all these young people who are actively involved. Yet when it comes to when you see like the church population, like it's not there. So I'm just wondering, like, okay, we say the church is this cornerstone, but where are like these people who we're saying like are gonna like we're doing all these things, we have all these things, but there's a disconnect between what we have and who we're attracting and who we're targeting. And so that's why sometimes I feel like, yes, the church is doing really great things, but where are these people on a consistent basis in terms of like being the church, if that makes sense?
I think that's in our follow-up. We lack the ability to have strong follow-up with people and really carry them back into the church, right? And say, hey, we know you showed up at this one thing. How can we get you to come to this other thing, right? Or what is it that you need? You came to the church for something. Have we supplied that, right? Are we filling that need and standing in the gap? And a lot of times we aren't. So I think, it's a mixture of both what I said and what you said, because someone can look at Sheldon Heights and say, oh, I'm so glad I was able to come to get food from the pantry. Did we have someone follow up with them and see if they needed to meet with a minister or meet with a social worker, or if they have other needs being met besides just getting food, right? Or maybe maybe they weren't really there for the food, maybe they were there for the fellowship, right? And they just happen to show up because that's where they know they could be around people during COVID. So we got to really think about why people are coming to us and if we're giving them what they need, right? A lot of people want to praise and they want to worship, but are we restricting people's worship, right? Are we telling people don't praise like that? You're too loud. We have to really think about, again, how we show up and how we show love, because I think that matters as to how we're going to keep people and how we're going to grow our church.
That's a very good point. Does somebody else have a piece before?
Actually, no, you got it. I think you got it.
Okay. Well, I'm coming to Kristen and you, Julius, for this next question and kind of transitioning off of this. I think that's a very good point that you made, though. I really all three of you all's points as a conjunction, because it kind of spoke to a point that Brother Hart talked about in the first episode, kind of how the church was something that helped aid these physical ailments and these physical issues. And then they were able to feed you and help you out spiritually. But I think it was actually Brother Smith. But because of all the things that are going on, if you can't really get to somebody spiritually if they have so many physical things that kind of still need to be tended. Jesus didn't try to preach before he fed the crowd. He didn't, before he helped and healed. Before then he kind of got into a lesson. And I think that's kind of an important point that both of you all spoke about, Miss Evans and Miss Carter, as far as that there is things that we can do differently. Sometimes we may have to look at ourselves as a problem instead of outside. And with that being said, the question I came up with, I guess, is the millennials. We are the new foundation of the church. We are that new rock. We are adaptive. We can change things pretty fast. We can roll with different punches. But it is at that point that we need to be that backbone. How do we secure and I guess better and do a better follow-up job? But what can we do differently to make it more of a fist effort than just 5 individual fingers as a youth? How do we get more millennials to become the backbone of a church like our parents and our grandparents once were?
People have to release power. And that means that some of the leadership that we have needs to sit down. And I don't say that to be a jerk. I say that to say that we love you and we appreciate all that you've done. And maybe it's time for some new blood to get in here and to allow us to do it the way we do it. It's not going to be done the same way it was done before, right? But there's a million ways to skin a cat. And what we need is their support, right? We're here, we're willing to do the work, but you can't sit and point your fingers at us at every little thing that we do wrong. We like to wear our humanity on our sleeves. We like to show who we are and all of who we are. And we can't be sat down every time we do something wrong. We need to be able to be ourselves, but we need the guidance. I'm not saying they can't tell us anything, because we definitely want to hear when we're wrong, but we need some space and some room at the altar.
It's a great point. Great point.
Yeah. I feel like I had points, but I think that's really what's necessary to be the backbone. There can only be one backbone. Somebody has to move. But I think also, I feel like I'm not really sure if it is time for millennials to be the backbone, to be honest. I think I also want to put out there, I live in DC and I've not been around just as much as everybody else. However, I do think that I feel like there still is time, for I think both systems to really work and support. And, I think there's a lot of people in the church that have been around for maybe even longer than some of us have even been alive. And I think that is like a lot of knowledge and a lot of stuff to learn. However, I do think that there is a lot of different traumas as well as a lot of different, I guess, just behaviors that have been learned in the generations before us. And I think that when you look at millennials and you look at the generations before us, we are extremely different, just in the way that, you say that we do wear our humanity on, have our humanity on our side whilst we do everything, and really need for that to be respected in order for us to really be able to participate at our fullest. And yeah, I think there's a lot of ways our ancestors have had to compromise those things about themselves, and they've learned to, and it's internalized. And so it's like, why shouldn't we be able to do that, But that's just not what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Amberlee, and I also want to add that in addition to like older folks, having to sort of like collaborate more with younger folks, I also think we as millennials too, we need a level of maturity to be fully committed to things, because honestly, it's not just like leadership is like the only problem. There's a lack of like commitment on our end to saying we're going to step into this role. We're going to do it despite the barriers, despite the setbacks, and we're going to kind of figure out how to co-lead this, as opposed to just saying it's going to be our way or we're not going to do it. So I think that there needs to be an alignment with both, a passing of a torch, a shared understanding of like what the greater vision, what the greater mission is, and like both sides being committed to seeing the change that we want to see and doing the work. Like everybody wants to like, get the prize, but like doing the work is where it really is. And everybody has to be committed to doing the work.
Kristen, do you have any thoughts as what improvements we can make as millennial, as the next generation up?
No, not really. I feel like everything was said, especially like on both sides. So
I really think that was a great point to wrap up. We had some interesting perspectives. I'm glad that we had different dogs on different fences and people fighting different points, but we all were able to come to a head and realize that it is, we are coming to a point where it is going to be our job soon to take on the mantle and take on the role that those before us have done. But it is up to us to be ready for the challenge. And they do have to be willing to give us, as Ms. Carter said, that power and that access for us to be able to achieve those goals. So I do want to leave the floor open for any last points Anything that anybody wants to say specific, any special Black history fact anybody wants to let us know about, the floor is open.
I don't have a Black history fact. I just wanted to really quickly, I didn't get to say like my Black history spirit animal, and right now I would choose Brittany Packnett Cunningham because she's a millennial, she's my age, and like she's really out and she's so holistic. Like she is about activism, but she loves Beyonce and Jesus too. So like that is my Black history spirit animal at the moment.
And I would follow up by saying Charlene Carruthers. You know, she's really all about collective liberation, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, we all gonna be free, or none of us are free. And so, you know, I just wanted to say also to Joseph, no, I'm not gonna hate on Don Lemon, but what I will say is that he has come a long way from saying, obviously there's a stench of weed, or there's a smell of weed around here. When Michael Brown's verdict was read, that was very concerning. And he's had many moments like that. But I will say that since he's started to read and understand and really spend more time with his people, he has come a long way. And so, like I said, maybe not my hero yesterday, but maybe he'll be my hero tomorrow.
Yeah, so I think I would say my Black hero warrior, I think I have two, maybe three. So to start, I would say someone named Hadia Mujahid. She started a program called HBCU VC that teaches HBCU students about venture capital and really finds ways for them to get in that job, as well as creating a fund for different Black businesses in order to be able to receive funding. The last two that I have are specific to Chicago and their foundations that I think do really good grassroots work. First, I was going to say Trap House Chicago. I think that they do a lot to talk about gun violence as well as police brutality in a way that really represents, I think, our generation and our forms of art today. Lastly, I would say my favorite, which is Alt Chicago or Alternative Chicago. It's a community of artists that work and create different, I guess, community bases where people can drop off food, as well as pick up different things that are needed within a crisis. And they literally build them on the street so that they can be accessed at any time for people, as well as books and anything else like that. And I think they're doing really good work in a way that's going to be even larger in the future.
I think that my Black warriors, I guess, would have to be Angela Davis, because of the like radical change that she helped influence and the change that she is taking part of now, as well as Tomi Adeyemi, which is a Nigerian American author who wrote The Children of Blood and Bone. And I find that it's really interesting that she gave the opportunity for African American kids or people my age to like see themselves in fantasy literature, and giving opportunities for like to create books themselves.
Thank you everybody for viewing at home. We hope you enjoy episode number 3 and stay tuned for our future episodes, and hope you enjoyed this episode of Our Heritage, Our Views. See you next time.